A warm welcome, everyone who has tuned in today. And thank you for joining today's live session where you have the opportunity to learn how to successfully accelerate your journey to SAP Cloud ERP. So this session is part of an entire series on the theme of SAP Business Suite. And in the description of this video, you can find the link that leads you to our playlist where you can access all past as well as the upcoming sessions. So don't miss the opportunity to take a look into our playlist. So today, I'm glad to be joined by Eric van Asselt and Neil Williams. They're both SAP Cloud ERP experts. So you, the participants, have the opportunity to address your questions directly to our experts. You can do so by using the chat window, and we will answer the questions right after the presentation part. So without any further ado, I would now like to hand over to today's experts. And Eric and Neil, the stage is all yours.
Thanks. Yeah, good day, everyone, and welcome to this live webcast to kickstart your SAP Cloud ERP journey with a digital-first connected value journey. And to modernize legacy systems, we see that our customers are looking for ways to discover the value and fit of Cloud ERP. And to accelerate this journey, Neil and I will explain our tools, methodology, and services that can help you achieve predictability and minimum surprises. A digital-first connected value journey starts with understanding our tools, methodology, and services, completely embedded in our SAP Activate methodology from discover to, in the end, run Cloud ERP. And for each individual phase of SAP Activate, we offer various tools to support the value journey. The content within these tools can be shared between tools and creating hereby an integrated tool chain. And this will accelerate a successful Cloud ERP adoption and of course open the doors for continuous innovations. So to begin our value journey with inside-out analysis, we included an analyze phase to analyze existing ECC, ERP, and S/4HANA systems as step 2 of the 5 integrated steps along the value journey. And we support this with Signavio Process Insights, which answers the question why, what, and how you can leverage the value of Cloud ERP in a hybrid cloud architecture. Let's say also based on all the cloud solutions that we offer with our business suite. So here you can see our complete integrated tool chain during the various phases of SAP Activate. And we will focus exclusively on the analysis and discovery phases to deliver our 5-step approach, leveraging the integration of Signavio Process Insight, Digital Discovery Assessment, and Signavio Process Navigator to complete the value journey. Before we delve deeper into the individual steps of our value journey, let's first take a closer look at the integrated tool chain. First, to realize the implementation of Cloud ERP, Cloud Application Lifecycle Manager can be used to support project planning, task management, detailed scoping and reporting, and also to model new processes. It also supports integrated control of business requirements, configuration, testing, release updates, and development management. And this provides transparent and safeguarded service delivery. As a next tool in the chain, you will see Central Business Configuration, where you can define the scope of your solution, set up and maintain the organizational structure, configure integrated end-to-end business processes, manage parallel projects and company rollouts. And the last one is SAP for Me. And this is our customer portal that allows you to manage your cloud and on-premise systems, to look at their status and availability, and also to keep track of users and contracts. You can view your SAP orders, your licenses, invoices, usage, and also balance statements, and it will give you a comprehensive overview of your products and support cases, and you can manage maintenance and support issues and keep track of users and contracts. And to optimally leverage the integrated toolchain for our value journey, we combined our 5-step approach with Signavio Process Insights and the digital discovery assessment tool during the analyze and discover phase of SAP Activate. Step 1 is all about the awareness to move away from a highly modified monologic ERP to a more agile modular ERP in the cloud based on best practices. And in step 2, we collect historical transactional data from existing ECC, ERP, or S/4HANA systems to gain insight into the use of process flows within the various company codes, with respect to the end-to-end processes of our reference business architect. And this will give us the insight and mapping we need to start with step 3 of our journey. And Neil will now take you through the first 3 steps of our value journey in more detail.
Great. Thank you, Eric. If we first start with the first step, and that first step is really around awareness. Now, this is not something which is a really defined methodology or anything, but it is something where we need to encourage customers to start looking at cloud as an option when they're going through a transformation. And generally what we do is, and what we find is that when you're thinking about moving or thinking about adopting a new solution, in this instance, we talk about SAP Business Suite, a lot of times people think of a specific journey that they want to go on and don't really consider the other options that they may have. So within the awareness phase, we know that there are potentially 2 journeys. One being a grow journey, where we look at a pure SaaS solution, and a second one being a rise journey, and that rise journey being a more of a private cloud instance. But we know that when we're starting off and you start looking at something, the best thing you can do is to determine what is the best journey, because as Eric said, it could be a hybrid approach. And generally, when we're looking at large organizations or looking at any organization, it can be a combination of the 2, because it is not really going to be starting from an on-premise to a complete lift and shift into one of these solutions or one of these journeys. And you don't want to do that. A lot of times you think about you want to do a greenfield implementation. If you are thinking about doing a brownfield implementation, yes, you can. There are certain journeys you can go on. However, starting off in the beginning, when you're thinking about moving, we are applying a methodology as we had within our racetrack that we talked about earlier on step-by-step process on how you're going to do that. Because what we find with a lot of our customers, although they want to move onto a journey, they're not sure how to go about that. And what we provide is those tools in order to do that, to move across, figuring out what's the best journey that you can go on. The awareness phase is important. And what we have found, and we've done this in the past, where a company was going across on a transformational journey, and they were only considering a rise journey. When we spoke with them, we got involved with the agenda, included a pure SaaS journey as well, so talking about the public cloud, and they started realizing, actually, there are 2 approaches. We can do a hybrid approach. So this awareness is really key and part of that. But it is, not the only thing that we need to do. We also, once we've decided and created that awareness, we need to start looking at the next step. And this is where we start using Signavio Process Insights. In this, we are aligning what you are doing based on your historical information or your historical data. We are aligning that to the high end-to-end business processes that you have. And this will include lead to cash, source to pay, plan to fulfill, if applicable, finance, which is applicable to most, acquired to decommission, and idea to market. The whole idea behind this is we want to analyze what you do now. And within Signavio, within the process insights, is to align those to those end-to-end business processes, and at the same time align them to a public cloud or scope items that potentially could be used to support that. For those areas where we don't have a solution, for example, it could be something you've created custom or what have you, we want to make sure that we also recognize those and put them in to identify what we're going to do with that next. And that really is focusing on how we are going to analyze what you do and how you can start taking this information from your business processes and align it in a way that makes sense by creating clusters. So in the business unit clustering side of things, what we are really are focusing on is using these end-to-end business processes, utilizing it at a custom company code level to, first of all, identify what you're doing at an entity level. And we do find, for example, we may have 1,000 companies or 500 companies. And what we want to do is we don't want to create a journey for each one of those. What we want to do is try to identify those units or business units that really are doing same or the similar things, that we will be able to do a digital discovery just based on those that are having these common processes. And this is key because what we do is we take away the unnecessary work that we need to do by looking at multiple digital discoveries. By taking the clustering, making the common processes, putting them together, we are then able to look at that entity, that business unit in totality, and others, and look at them and validate with you, the customer, to understand where does this fit? How does this fit? And that is really, really key because we don't want to waste people's time. We want to make sure that we can actually do a few clusters for your whole entity. And this is what Signavio, as you can see here, we're using Signavio Process Insights, where we have now the company code aligned to your end-to-end business processes. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Eric to talk about the next step in the process.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, and the good thing about Signavio as well is that based on the process flows that we identify on company code level, it automatically maps that to the best practices that are applicable for Cloud ERP. So this is what we visualize here on the left side. For example, if we take the process flow for sales order item creation, related to a business unit, so a company code, and related to the end-to-end process of lead to cash, we can even go to the level of the process model, in this case, order to fulfill. And then Signavio will automatically map that to all the best practices that are applicable for this particular process flow. And based on that, we can go even further and talk to your business and do an outside in. And based on the same process and same process model, we can even go to the level of the process activity. And that gives us really even a more detailed scope that we can use as a starting point to do the digital discovery assessment for that cluster. So in this case, if we, for example, the customer is only using the process activity for managed customer orders, then only 2 scope items are applicable within this whole order to fulfill process model. And that's how we define, let's say, the high level scope to go to the next step and make sure that we can, based on the clusters, run the digital discovery. So based on that exercise, I also brought a custom use case with me. And what you see here is that we did an analysis of a cluster, and this cluster 1 and 2 is core ERP. So that means that we try to look at all the business units that only are using core ERP like finance, sales, procurement, and service. And you will see that within our analyzing, we saw that already 110 company codes are using only that kind of functionality in their current ECC system. And with that, we also came up with a third cluster where we also incorporated business-to-business service, so external service, that they deliver service to their customers, which also brings some additional scope items, best practices with it, and even a fourth cluster where we also included enterprise asset management for local usage. So this gives us already a cluster of almost, well, in this case, 200 company codes that are using this kind of functionality and map that to the best practices of a cloud ERP solution. We also even went further with cluster 5 and 6, and in cluster 5 you see that also global asset management is in place, and even some advanced units that use really advanced capabilities like work clearance management or linear asset management. And what we learned based on all the requirements for cluster 5 and 6, this will never fit into a SaaS ERP solution. So in this case, we just could focus on clusters 1 through 3 and 4 to go to the next step and to start the digital discovery. And therefore, we now enter, let's say, in step 5, where we discover and approve. And here we use the digital discovery assessment tool, which is really a nice platform to collaborate with you as a customer, with partners, and with SAP in one digital tool. And based on the mapping and the clustering that we did in step 3 and 4, we automatically will enter the scope into this tool. And here you see the different scopes for the different business areas related to this particular cluster. So in this case, we created 4 different DDA records for each individual cluster. And then, of course, during the workshop, we need to also identify more information. So we want to know, for example, what are your integration requirements? So we need to know exactly which external systems we need to integrate with. Which countries are in scope? We have to make sure that all the scope that we analyzed is also applicable for the countries that you have in scope. Maybe we have some localization issues here. And also, of course, additional requirements that we couldn't find in the best practice, maybe based on your Z transactions or custom code that you built in your ECC. So we kind of have a look at that. Is this something for another cloud solution that we can incorporate, or do we use extensibility options to make that happen? So this kind of information we will gather for each individual cluster within the DDA tool, and then we will ask for approval by running what we call a brand guardian assessment. So that means that SAP experts will look at all the content that we provide, and they will get an approval if we can go further to think about a SaaS ERP solution for this particular cluster. Based on the same use case, you see here that on the left side, we have the traditional on-prem architecture, so their current situation with highly modified monolithic ERP. And in this case, this customer is running 2 on-prem ERP systems. The second one, based on legal requirements, will never move to cloud, so we don't bother with that one. We just looked at the first ERP system with the different cluster approach that we just explained. And based on that, you will see that we have the optional to go to a more hybrid cloud architecture using the 2 journeys that Neil explained during the awareness phase. So in this case, cluster 5 and 6, it doesn't have a fit to a SaaS ERP solution at this moment, could leverage the RISE journey. And in this case, the customer is thinking about splitting, let's say, the public cloud instance in 2 entities, one for new business and one for their current market. And in this case, for new business, you can think about new business models or entering new markets, or also maybe also buying some companies within these new markets and then make them run quickly on a SaaS ERP instance. And the other ones related to cluster 1, 2, 3, and 4 will end up in the current market tenant. You will see that all these companies will run the transactions on their own tenant. So that's not a two-tier here, but it's really a hybrid solution. Of course, we have to deal with non-SAP integration, with group reporting, and of course, the master data that can be shared across the different tenants, even if it's a private or a public tenant. So this gives us an idea how we can support you during the analyze and discover phase. So very early, let's say, in the engagement with the customer, to see what are the possibilities to move from your on-prem architecture to a more hybrid cloud architecture. And with that, I would like to open for Q&A.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your insights, Neil and Eric. Much appreciated. So as you've already mentioned, we will now move over to the Q&A part. So you, the participants, still have the opportunity to include questions in the chat window, and we will pick them up from there. So let me take a look into the chat. So I can see we have received a couple of questions already. So the first question is, what are the key benefits of implementing different versions of SAP Cloud ERP, in brackets, private and public?
So maybe I can
Go
help
ahead.
a little. Yeah, so I think what are the benefits? We know, for example, public cloud has a standard methodology. It is a 2B model. The whole idea behind the public is to get up and running and going very, very quickly. So if you have an organization which is not really complex, you can create a template and get them up running a lot quicker. With the RISE journey, you have a little bit more flexibility to customize and to do things. You still want to keep the core clean, but you have the capability to adopt a lot of the innovations that you may have done in your instance. So what you have is the ability to support new innovations, start using AI, start using the data cloud, using all the new stuff that SAP are really helping business, and at the same time supporting what you currently do, but enabling you to grow as well. So yeah, it can support everything that you may be doing at the moment, but also looking to the future.
Perfect. Thank you for shedding light on that. So let's move over to the second question that we have received in the chat. So are the shown tools already included in the SAP Cloud ERP subscription?
Some of them are, some are for free, and some need a license. So if you look at, for example, let's start with the first one on the left side. That was Signavio Process Insights. This is currently coming with a license. If we go further in the chain, starting with the digital discovery assessment tool, this is for free. The same for Signavio Process Navigator, which is tightly integrated to the digital discovery assessment tool. That means if you want to have more details about the best practice, you can go directly from the digital discovery tool to the Signavio Process Navigator tool and to see the details. Also, Calm is part of the implementation of a suite. The same for the central business configuration, and the same for SAP for me. So the only tool that currently comes with a license is Signavio Process Insights.
Perfect. Thank you for your insights into that. So we have a third question in the chat, which is, how can we best incorporate the review of the custom code in your current system into this value journey to Cloud ERP?
Neil?
Yeah, I think The main idea is the Signavio Process Insight. When we run, we want to understand exactly your custom code and how that links to an end-to-end business process. For those ones that we can't identify, we want to include that into the digital discovery assessment as an additional requirement, because we won't know what you've done. When we sit with you as the customer going through our clustering, in there we will have these additional requirements that are linked to those business clusters, and we will validate what that is. And it may be that what you have created is something standard within the current product in the SaaS, or it may be that we have to start thinking about extensibility, partner solutions, roadmap, etc. So the whole idea behind this is that we do capture and we do understand what it is, and then link it to something that we can provide going forward as a solution for that whole cluster.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So let me take another look into the chat. I can currently not see any additional questions. So let me quickly outline what I've mentioned in the beginning. So today's session is part of an entire SAP Business Suite series of live webcasts, and you can access our playlist where you can find all sessions that are part of this series in the description of this video. So there you can find a link leading you to the playlist. So don't miss the opportunity to take a look into that. So with that, I would like to say thank you very much to today's experts, Neil and Eric. And many thanks also to the participants for joining. Hope to see you again in one of our future sessions. Have a great day and goodbye.